My why is because I believe every single person deserves to be heard. That every single person has greatness within them.
Hello, I'm Kate McKay, and this is Master Your Life. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am introducing a wonderful guest that I was so much looking forward to meeting. Welcome, Sarah Willoughby from Melbourne, Australia.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I love having people, international people, just for the accents. You know what I mean? It's so wonderful. So I'm looking forward to getting right on into it. Now, you're a writer of a book called Infertility Saved My Life, Healing PCOS from the Inside Out. And it's really talking about a secondary infertility. And, I've talked to a few different people about infertility. And yet I'm just so curious, like, what was the reason behind this book? Like, what led to this?
I went on this crazy journey through secondary infertility, a journey that led to a lot of loss, grief, and trauma, and me facing my own mortality when an IVF cycle went disastrously wrong. And in that moment of complete vulnerability, when I realized that I may not be able to raise my son and that he may grow up without me, I realized that I may live this life of regret unless I made fundamental changes. And that was all based on the hope that I was given a second chance at life. So I made this deal with the universe that if I was given a second chance at life, I would spend the rest of my life being of service, of walking towards my fear and living my best life and really allowing myself to be who I was supposed to be and not living a life by the expectations of others. So obviously, spoiler alert, I'm here, and I sort of went through with that promise. And the reason that I wrote the book was because I didn't want anybody to go through what I'd gone through on that very long journey to try to complete my family. And I also just wanted to help people feel less alone and offer some hope, because I was very lucky and I was able to complete my family naturally against all the odds. And so when people are in that real space of vulnerability, of being told, you're never going to have a family, or it's just not happening for them, and they've been on that fertility journey for such a long time, it's really hard to keep picking yourself back up again and again and again. So I wanted to share the tools, the techniques, the insight, the wisdom that I learned the hard way, but those things that did help me to finally fulfill my dream to become a mum to not just one child, but three beautiful, beautiful children.
3 babies. That's so exciting. So when we hear fertility, it's almost like there's so much infertility. We hear so much, it's so much hush. Of course, we've all known people that have gone through infertility treatments, but it's complicated. And the rate of ability to get pregnant from infertility treatment is quite low. And yet people spend thousands and thousands of dollars and go through excruciating amounts of pain, physical and emotional pain, in order to achieve the goal of having a baby. So what happened with you? What went south for you?
So I already had a beautiful little boy, and he was conceived straight away, pretty much on my honeymoon. So even though I had PCOS and I knew that can sometimes impact fertility, I naively thought that everything would be fine. But I then ended up having lots of miscarriages and trying lots of treatments that didn't work. And I was told that really the best chance for me was to go through IVF. And so I went over to Norway. So I'm originally from the UK. I've got a bit of a mixed accent. And I went over to Norway to have a holiday, Kate. I thought that this would be, a really great way to relax in the 2-week wait. And unfortunately, my body just didn't like the hormones, didn't like the drugs, and everything just started to shut down. And it was the most excruciating experience, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And when you hit that rock bottom, I think you have a choice. You either give up, and that was definitely a choice that my body had, because I was, at one point, they were investigating whether I had heart failure. So there's really not much that can come from once you're at that point. It's, really quite serious. So I knew at that point that it was over to me. And so I realized that this was a mindset battle. and that I had a choice about how I moved forward on that journey when I was in intensive care and when I was in hospital. And I surrendered. And for the first time, I just kind of surrendered to the universe and said, okay, you know, meet me halfway. Let's co-create what it is. If you really want me to be here, then I'm willing to let go of all the expectations I had for myself and other people did, because at that point I was working in the corporate world and I'd been doing that for 10 years and it was killing my soul, but I was too scared to leave. So from there, I then went on and I actually had another miscarriage when I had a frozen embryo transfer once I'd fully recovered. And I realized that I needed to change something, and so decided to emigrate over to Australia. And I really started to do that inner work, that deep dive, mind, body, spirit work, realizing that everything is connected and it wasn't just a physical journey. So I came out to Australia originally thinking that I was going to be coming out as a family of 5. I was pregnant with twins. And unfortunately, before I emigrated, I lost one of the twins and then I lost the other one. And I had this choice about, do I stay in the UK and be close to the rest of my frozen embryos, or do I move over to Australia and just start a new life? I chose the latter and came out here. And I had this real moment of peace in my body. I remember it very vividly, where I just completely let go. And ironically, within 6 weeks, I then fell pregnant naturally with my daughter, my second child, who's almost 14. And then 4 years later, I had my second daughter, who is almost 10. But I had to really start doing the inner healing, the inner work, this going on this journey to self-love and acceptance, all parts of me, all those parts that I thought were flawed and imperfect, just having to embrace every part of me to be able to create these beautiful babies and become a mum again. So it was quite a journey.
Yeah. Well, it's so interesting that you say, and I've talked to several people that were in near death experiences, and it's the first time I've heard it a little bit differently from you, saying, I surrendered to it and to whatever it was or whatever I needed to do. And that I said, all right, God, universe, I'm willing to give up, surrender to whatever I need to in order to live, which I assume you did want to live. Yes, even
absolutely.
despite the challenges. So it's an interesting foray for me to think of as surrendering as actual a side of grit and determination and actual psychological fortitude. Could you get into that a little bit? Explain what your perception is of that, your perspective?
I think there's a lot of vulnerability in surrendering. We're letting go of this need to control everything. And I'd lived a life that was very structured. I'd gone through the academic system. I had spent 6 years at university. I'd worked my way up the corporate ladder. I'd always been in control of what my next step was. And here, for the first time in my life, I wasn't in control of anything. And I realize now we're in charge of how we respond to life, but we're never in control of anything. But this was the first time as a woman who had been successful in her life that she had, quote unquote, failed at something. And so there was huge vulnerability in just taking a step back and becoming an observer to my own life and what was going on, and saying, actually, I don't have the answers. For the first time in my life, I don't have the answers. It's not a tick box activity that I can work my way through and I'm going to get the result at the end. There's no guarantees here. So what can I do in the process to be kind to myself and actually live the life that I being given right now, rather than the one that I think I should have or the one that I am trying to create? Let me be present in my own life. That was what changed to me, that surrendering, that being present in the moment, of handing it over to the universe and just saying, you more than me. I trust you and the journey that you have for me, because you can see the big picture. I can only see a tiny part of that. And what I think is supposed to be for me and what is supposed to happen for me is obviously not. So I need to get out of my own way. I need to tame my ego and step into my heart. And it is such a journey of trust. It's a very challenging one, but it's changed my life and the way that I live my life. And for that, I have huge gratitude.
It's interesting. I'm just fascinated by this for a whole bunch of reasons, because it's almost as though you found through your own sense of free will, the willingness to see things a different way, which turned out to be your strength. You know, the surrender was the strength. It's just such
Yes.
an interesting, complicated, almost bizarre association in my mind. And I think that I can relate to that too, because I think that, you know, that I lost the son to suicide in 2017. And for me, the rebuilding, the surrendering was real, because it was like I lost a human, a 22-year-old human being that was supposed to outlive me. And it just messed up my head. And it required me to surrender to the will, but it also at the same time was I had to reorganize what that was, what is meaning, and then rebuild it from there. And it's a different kind of fuel. And I think that that's important, is like I could no longer take regular. I had to have like this supercharged unleaded in order to fuel me. I still think that I'm living through the complicated mix of what it is to fuel me. And I don't know, I never really had that struggle with self-love and self-acceptance. I don't know why, but I'm just fascinated by this conversation, because I guess I really ultimately never felt like I controlled anything. And I was one of 9 kids. I never had control over anything. So I think we come from this from such a different angle, and yet the result is so similar. And I just adore that. So what would you say pre all of this, pre your near death experience, and post death experience? How do you define success now, and how did you define success then?
So success previously was the wealth, the house, the car, the lifestyle, the traveling, the being surrounded by friends and family, never really looking, at that point, I never thought that I would live abroad. It was quite an alien concept to me. Post that experience, success to me is the ability to feel peaceful in each moment, is the ability to be present with myself and my children. It's the ability to spend time in nature and just be still and have gratitude for the simple things in life. So it looks very, very different to me, but I have much more purpose and much more meaning now than I ever would have had living this life that was not for me. So the reason that I call my book Infertility Saved My Life is because it saved me from a life that was lacking resonance, that I was too scared to leave because that was what I was supposed to be doing. And I didn't know any different, and I didn't know how to leave that. So
what was
I'm
the
definitely...
voice that you heard? Was it your own, or did it come from someone in your childhood? What success was supposed to...
I think what success was supposed to look like was a combination of what my parents viewed success to be. Education had been very important, particularly to my father, because he'd put himself through university twice. He'd come from a working class family. He hadn't had much money, and he'd turned his life around. So academics for him was very, very important. And so I just trusted that journey for myself as well. Nothing is wasted. It definitely got me to where I am now. Working in corporate HR has given me a massive skill set that I'm very grateful for, and I am able to use in the coaching that I do with my clients. So it was all perfect. But I was living a life from my mind, not my heart. And I think when we step into our heart space and when we can connect with our own soul's journey, then we're never going off track. We may take a bit of a wobbly journey to get there, but we will always be heading in the right direction. Whereas when we are still living from a space of our mind and our ego and what everybody around us thinks we should be doing and trying to compete with everybody else, then we will, I believe, get taken to places that we don't necessarily want to go. And it can feel like we're pushing our way through life rather than sitting in a space of more ease and grace, where things naturally come to us and abundance in all forms naturally flows to us and through us.
So what do you think? I just finished writing my next book called The Agility Mindset. And the components of it are that obviously we have to be adaptable in the face of change. So there's this component of resiliency that's very important. But the other part of it is psychological fortitude. And it's having the willingness, the will to keep going, even when we want to surrender. Because I believe as humans that we must have the will, that if too much ease causes dis-ease, it causes, so, and because I'm a high performance coach, and I believe that the push and the drive into action, even though I've had such great loss, was the reason why I was able to persevere. And I'm curious about your perspective on that. And the reason why I'm finding this to be excruciatingly important is shit's gonna go down, Sarah, in this world. Like
Yes.
shit's gonna go down. And
Yes.
I'm saying that from a place of gravity, but I'm also with the lightness, right? Because I'm a positive person and I'm prepared to be one of the helpers because I'm strong and I'm resilient and I have fortitude. But what is your perspective? What do you want the people to know that are feeling vulnerable? They don't feel like they have the tools. They don't feel like they have the will, the education, the knowledge, the self-reflection, the intentionality to continue to move forward. What do you want to tell those?
Every answer to every problem you will ever face is within you. And it is a combination of surrendering, but also taking action. Nothing happens in life unless we're prepared to take the next step. And it doesn't need to be a massive step. We don't need to always know exactly where we're headed. We get so focused on the destination that we forget to enjoy the journey. But if we just ask every single day, what's my next best step? You know, asking for help, for that guidance coming from source, the universe, God, whatever you believe in, but also from yourself, taking time to get still, to be able to tune into the wisdom that lies deep inside, will always enable you to move through your greatest challenges and overcome things that you cannot even imagine. As you said, Kate, losing your beautiful son is something that it's just, you can't get your head around how you move through that, but yet you're sat here on the other side of that with such strength and determination and grace and love, and through your work to help other people. And so I am a believer that we can turn our pain into our purpose as well, and that every single one of us is unique and has some special gift that we are here to share with the rest of the world. And so I encourage people to really do that and to develop the best relationship you can with self, because that's the only relationship that is guaranteed. From the moment we're born to the moment we take our last breath, it's the only one that really matters. And I don't mean that in a selfish, egotistical way, but I mean that if we can connect with ourselves, love ourselves, accept ourselves, back ourselves, and just every single day just tune in with ourselves, the wisdom in our body is incredible. And then we find that strength every day to take action, even if it's just one small step. It will get us to where we need to be, and it will help to create the future that we deserve, because
Momentum,
we all deserve,
in a lot of ways. It's just the small steps are leading to momentum. And I love the expression of like a mustard seed. And I'm trying to remember who it was. Maybe it was Alex Hermosi. And he's like, don't expect that. Like, you're basically to feel like you deserve things. Like your futures, you're doing it for your future self. In the present moment, you may not feel good. You may not think you're that great. You may not feel like you deserve something or are worthy of something, but you're doing and taking action for the future self of you and the people that are waiting for you to serve that, even if you feel like a hot friggin' mess. So anyone who's listening, what I want to say to you is that you're not always going to feel that you in this moment feel deserving, that you feel like it. And I always laugh because I'm fit. I think people think I love to work out. I don't. I mean, there's some days that I love to work out, right, Sarah? There's some things that we do that we enjoy doing, but mostly it's the after effect. And I would say that's the working out into, any kind of creative pursuit. It's a grind, and there are processes to mastery. And you know this because of your educational pursuit, is that there's a grind. And we have to be willing to lean into that, into the mess of who we are. I love your
Yes.
description of the self. That was really quite beautiful. I can't wait to play that piece back and re-listen, because it was so holistic, but not so esoteric that people would be like, oh gosh, you know, we just have to love ourselves. But that's not really, you're saying that, and yet so much more,
Thank you.
so much more.
And I agree with you about it showing up for ourselves, even in those moments when we don't feel like it, of knowing that we can build on our success just one exercise at a time, one more minute of, you know, doing the hard work, we can get to where we need to be. So even on those days that we don't feel like going for a walk, going to the gym, writing the next chapter in our book, whatever it is, those are the moments that can be quite pivotal and really get us to where we need to be. So,
and that's self-love too. It's
absolutely,
doing the things,
absolutely.
because self-love isn't all peaches, and this is what I love about you so much, and what I love about your message is that you're saying it's not all like cupcakes and roses, that the self-love has, and it's not necessarily going to be effortless, but it will be so worth it to do the work of leaning in and surrendering into even the willingness to see.
Yes, the willingness to try, the willingness to see failure as taking you one step closer to success. As you've already mentioned, to be human is to be messy. And the more I do this work, the more I dive into myself and help other people to come on this journey with me, the more messy at times it gets. But it's always taking me back to a better version of myself. And that better version of myself can not just support me and my family, but it's also about the future generations that I will never meet, and leaving a legacy beyond anything I can imagine for people who may need that in, 100, 200, 500 years time. We all have the ability to make positive change for things that we will never get to benefit from ourselves, but everybody that's coming after us will be able to. And I believe in that from a bigger purpose perspective.
So I'm going to ask you a question. So outside of your children, what are you most proud of?
I'm most proud of the fact that I've been prepared to take risks. I've been prepared to, at times, go on my journey alone, and that I have picked myself up from this journey through secondary infertility. Life is challenging, but I've never lost sight of my heart, and I'm proud of that, that I will my love will always be bigger than my fear. And if I can hold that and keep that belief, then I know that no matter what happens in my life, that my intentions will always be good, and that I will always be able to create change. The ripple effect of us living from our hearts rather than our minds and our ego is always going to create beautiful change. And the world so desperately needs that right now. We
So
really
true.
need that love and that acceptance and that connection, realizing that we are all connected.
True story. And, I could listen to you forever, because I really do quite appreciate that. And that's something to be proud of, that you can sleep at night knowing that you've done good work. And I think that has a huge weight. I measure my days like that. Like, who did I serve? Even if it's the custodian in my building, or it's person checking me out at Walmart, or whatever, or this interview. It's like, I showed up for someone today, and that feels
Yes.
wonderful. I love that. So if you don't mind just giving us just a run on what is POSD, just because I think it's important for people to know, and I probably should have run this through at the beginning, but if you don't mind just giving a synopsis of what it is, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so PCOS is a condition that actually affects quite a lot of women globally. It's a hormonal disturbance, and these symptoms are different for every woman. So some women will present as having weight issues, higher testosterone levels, fatigue, disturbed hormones, excess hair. There's a whole range of symptoms that impact people. Some people are impacted from a fertility perspective, other people aren't. and it's diagnosed through blood tests and ultrasounds. I wasn't diagnosed till I was in my 20s, even though I'd had symptoms since I was 12 when my periods first started. So it is something that often gets overlooked, and it is really something that I want people to, to try to understand. From, if they know somebody who is having issues, just, do a little bit of reading around this, because it impacts every aspect of life. And I've been quite lucky with my symptoms. They haven't been too bad. And now I'm on the other side of my fertility journey. They're definitely manageable. But there were times when, it gives you anxiety and depression, and it affects your mental state. And when you are dealing with this on a daily basis, it is challenging. So the more awareness that we can create around it, and the more people that even know what it is and how they can support their loved one, then the easier the ride for everybody, because it becomes an emotional journey as well, of feeling like I'm a failure as a woman. I can't, if you have those fertility issues, I can't do the one thing that a woman is supposed to, in inverted commas, do, have a child. So you feel like a failure. So there's all of that stuff that's embedded in that as well.
Super helpful. Yeah. So in your book, people will be able to find that. And if you don't mind just talking a little bit about, yep, there it is. There it is. Infertility Saved My Life. What a beautiful cover. And people can grab that. Where is that available?
It's available everywhere. It's available from Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart, Target. Basically Google it and it will be available somewhere near you.
Thank you so much. Sarah, if you had, I'm just going to ask the final question. If you had a billboard and anywhere, and let's just say, I don't know, in Melbourne, and that people would drive by, millions of people would see, what would you want that billboard to say?
It's a bit of a cliche, but I think the saying "you are enough" is really resonant with me right now. So many people are struggling, certainly here in Australia, and I'm sure in America too, with financial stress and pressure and uncertainty, and just not knowing, like, it's got so bad here that people don't even know where they're going to get their next meal for their children. And I just want people to hear that no matter what is going on outside of you right now, whatever circumstances you're facing, come back to your own heart and know that you are enough, you are worthy. This too shall pass. And just keep trusting the journey, that this is happening for you, not to you. I think that's really important. Just wake up and ask, how may I serve? What's one next step that I can do today? It's amazing what will happen when we ask for help, when we ask for that co-creation to step in. We realize that there are so many signs around us all the time, and so much help that is available beyond what we can see. I really do believe that that's been my life journey, recognizing those signs and being prepared to say yes to life. I've been very blessed with an incredible life, one that I never dreamt that I could have co-created. So we have everything inside us to do that.
Brava. And you are enough. I just want to say thank you, Sarah, for sharing your story and your insight that certainly resonated with me. And I'm certain that the viewers and listeners also will take great peace in what you say, as well as some fire to take action to live more fully in who they are and who they came here to be. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. I've loved our conversation. And like you said, I could talk to you for hours. So thank you for sharing your journey and inspiring others to go on their journey and take those steps and create the life that they deserve. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. I am Kate McKay, a master of your life. Until next time, remember, you are enough. You are worthy. You are here to be the fire. So go and claim it.